Alright, so we are live, and today I would like to talk about society, because in my opinion society is right in some aspects, but there are some aspects that are not really uh, I would just like to make some points that I think about a lot, because I've been thinking about a lot about like society and stuff like this, because um, of course I live in society, and like all of us we have some urges that can go against society, right? So if it goes if it goes against society, then we kind of have a problem, because we can get locked up, or we can just have problems, um, because it's just it's not agreed upon in society. So for example, we have sex, which is, if it's too promiscuous, it can be harmful uh, in ways that um, in ways that uh, that society doesn't accept, because we live in a society of self-control, right? We live in a society where we believe we are above animal, but still having these animal instincts, you know. So if we still have these animal instincts plus a mind that is capable of thinking stuff that no animal would think, we have a conjunction here, like we have a conflict here, you know, of interests, because we need to appeal to our animal nature while still being societally accepted, alright? So one of the human needs is for connection, which till Swan would say that it is even before the needs of eating and all this stuff, these basic physical needs. It's the need of connection, because if we are not connected, then we don't have any purpose to live at all, right? So we could say that it's a good idea to put that first, right? But we have a society that is mainly built around connection. So yeah, then there's physical needs, emotional needs, and stuff like this, right? Here's my phone. Let me check the needs. I don't know. I don't know where my phone is. All right, whatever. Yeah, it's recording this. Yeah, so, but so yeah, if we have a need for sexual reproduction, that is one of the hardest survival needs, I think, after eating, sleeping, and stuff like this, because if we eat, sleep, and can survive, we want to reproduce so we can have offspring that also can survive. But we have this societal thing of pleasure, you know, this societal construct around pleasure, and every animal needs pleasure in some way, um, and attention and love and stuff like this, right? So if attention is one of the needs of people, then wouldn't it make sense to have mm, wouldn't it make sense to have uh, to for the shadow to wants to express its need for attention when it was blocked along the way and your basic needs were not met? So basically you could be shouting, okay, I need help here, I need help, and no one would react. So I think uh, you could be then placed in a situation in which um, these needs for attention and stuff like this are just on top, you know. So if you are not seen, you will make. I'm talking about myself here because I have some things around attention that I need to work through. So if I need attention, is because it hasn't been met before. So when I was in distress, um, I was I was trying to make uh, things in order to appeal to save me, you know. So um, yeah, I was just talking to a friend who is kind of in the same problem, but he's more like schizophrenic about it. So it's more. It's not. Yeah, he hears a voice that is talking to him and saying him to do things that he really wants to do. You know, for real. So um, this poses the question that if your needs are not met, you will try to meet these needs by any means possible, and this is where the shadow comes in. So you try to to make things happen in order for need to be met, right? So for example, I have this thing of putting myself naked in front of people and stuff like this, uh, because um, I have not been loved, I feel like, for who I am, and for uh, um, I'm trying to make up things so that um, I can be noticed, you know, and I can be um, so I can be loved for the parts of myself that I don't accept. But really is for me to accept them, not for other people. The only way that I force myself to accept them is because uh, I put myself so that um, I can have, so that there is an opportunity for that need to be met. But this is in depart from my self control. All right, so that's the problem here, is that my self control and what I want to do, how I want to meet my needs, is against the is against I'm trying to achieve it in a very animalistic way, in a very um, in a very head-on way, and this is complicating my life quite a bit, because if you think only about sexual pleasure most of the time, which may derive too from, because I don't think it's only about pleasure, it's about reproduction, because it's a natural instinct for us to want to reproduce, so we continue. It's a survival mechanism, yeah. So I want to be accepted for who I am underneath too. But if I accept myself in the first place, then I will not need the acceptance from the exterior. So this going around naked is just a way of introducing myself to the acceptance of my own body. But of course, it comes to the detriment of that that um, you know, that I can get into trouble from that, you know. I'll try to get all more on this podcast as soon as possible, probably when I'm in Poland. Um, I would like to talk to him about this because he's a very firm believer, it seems to me, like in the Old Testament and the Garden of Eden, stuff like this. And I mean, this is religion, you know, it's ancient text, a symbolic. Uh, it's a symbolic thing. It's not. It's not. It doesn't have to be taken like this, you know. I mean, we still live in a world, okay, where we could live harmoniously with the world, but it doesn't mean that we have to um it doesn't mean that we have to be this way, like like naked and stuff like this, or just, I mean, they were still building shelters and stuff like this, and it's easy to say to just lie in nature and stuff like this, but what do you do when winter comes, and stuff like this? So basically, we would come to a point where we would be like we are here now, that we would dress up and have this whole culture of fashion and stuff like this, because um, it's just easier, more aesthetic, and more interesting. It's a way of expressing yourself. Of course, we don't need it, but it's like music, it's a way of expressing yourself, and it's it's just part of our humanity. But the moment you have a problem with doing the opposite, with being close, you have a real fucking problem. I'm telling you from experience, because uh, because most of our society is based on clothing, on just hiding yourself. But mm, you know, love is naked. They say, fear hides itself. But um, it doesn't have to be interpreted in the in the completely mm, in the completely exact specific term of the sense. It can be a little bit uh, manipulated into what we know. It can be a symbolic, thing that we are just vulnerable. But um, here it's about like self-control too. It's like, okay, you can be naked, but also you can be clothed. That's the real problem here, is that you can say the truth, but it doesn't mean you are afraid to tell lies or to um, I mean, I can be completely open and transparent with you and be naked and be all this kind of stuff. To be pure, yeah, like you'd say, but that doesn't mean um, I still have thoughts and I still have things that govern me. I still have fears and stuff like this. If I have a fear while I'm naked to be clothed again, because then this light will be dimmed, that means I'm afraid of the dark, which means that I need an external prerequisite to have a good internal attitude. I mean, if you can only be happy and good when you are outside in nature, I think there's a slight problem there, because alright, it is better in nature and to be naked and to be synchronized with nature and stuff like this. But first of all, you don't bring into the city where there are completely other rules that, like, nature is not well seen. It's not something that is. It's not something that is needed, that is seen as valuable in the city. That's why you have very little, nature in general. You have some parks and stuff like this, okay, but in general, it's built on capitalism, which is of making money. And I was seeing today, like, this guy looking over the from his fucking high building, like looking over the city, uh, which is basically cement, which is fucking crazy when you think about it. There's nothing pretty about looking over a fucking piece of cement. Okay, we have built this, alright, yeah, okay, but is it really, that beautiful? It is amazing, yeah, that we have built it, but it's not something. It's something more that appeals to the ego more than to the soul, because the soul likes beauty, and this is not something that is beautiful. So, yeah. So yeah, the basis of my nakedness is based on complex around my crotch. Alright, so it's a basis of acceptance and to do something to gain acceptance from the outside instead of gaining it from the inside, which is kind of the main problem here, because we can seek acceptance on the outside our whole lives, but um, if we don't accept something inside of us, it will not change anything. It will not add to anything. So yes, society is kind of biased in the way of um, of disconnection, of being um, of being disconnected from one each other. It's like versus me, which creates a kind of whole, but uh, it's still a competitive landscape, which is very natural, and everything that we do is natural, of course, because we are um, human beings. But the fact that it's natural doesn't mean that it's that we can find a healthier way to do it. And maybe the fact that I want to do it a healthier way is in itself a competitive trait on the market. Because if I can build something that is better and that is more ecological and more environmentally friendly, but that um, but that goes against the societal norms. I mean, the big brains, the big fishes of society already that have established um, a hierarchy and has established a certain model of economy. If I come in with a different kind of thinking and acting, um, this model will collapse and they will have no power anymore, because you have only power inside the model of thinking that you have constructed. If you start creating your own model or going with the model of nature, which essentially would be the best one, because um, if you go to the with the model of nature, it's like kind of the basis of everything. but the model of nature is very anarchistic, and it's not, there is no law really. Um, it's just happenings. It's just um, there is its own model, like alpha, beta, and everything like this, but it is not. Um, it is not higher. I mean, yeah, it is hierarchized, really. But yeah, we are the predators of this planet. Um, and the thing about animals is that I think that they, uh, they, they, they eat until they are full. And they don't have these like egoic needs, they this sense of pride of um, they just don't have this sense of what. I mean, we don't really know what they have sense of, but we could say that mm, they don't have this sense of greed, of taking more than they need, uh, thinking about the future. They have more like a collective uh, thing, But yeah, we are animals, We cannot. Mm, we could actually, and that would be the best thing actually to do, is to just surpass this animalistic thinking, because that's our power in this world, is to surpass this animalistic thinking. If not, we would not be um, gifted with these gifts of self-control uh, and long-term thinking uh, and cooperation. Although a lot of things, it's all very animal, all very natural, But yeah, I mean, there is nothing really wrong with this world, there's a point when you can see that it's all absolutely natural what is happening in the world, and um, that doesn't mean that it's good. It's just amplified. It's just the things in the natural world are amplified to a degree where you can very clearly see that it's uh, to our own detriment, you know, and that there is one winner and all losers. It can come to a point like that where um, the 1% has become so greedy that all the rest falls out, but they still need the rest in order to sustain themselves. So, um, yeah. So the best thing to do would be to just democratize power, just regulate power on a bigger scale than just mm, than just the than than just the 1%, But the 1% controls everything because they have the power, because they make the decisions of what is gonna happen and how things are gonna look. So they want to live in their own paradise. They are an egoistic creature, like everything on this earth, kind of, because we are a survival based species. But um, but that doesn't mean that uh, we cannot use our own intelligence in order to spread it out, you know, to just have more empathy for one another and just spread out the power more and the money more, so it's not just the one person's game, because for now it's the elite that is playing their game on our backs, you know. But to regain our power, we would have to disconnect from this game at all, to just um, create our own game on our own rules. Um, uh, and for me, it would be something based on peaceful anarchy, because the less laws, the less infrastructure is needed, and the infrastructure is really what is getting us into trouble, because things are very easy in life, it's just that this entity has created itself in order for our own good, really, but has begun to be so complicated that it's um, that it's eating up our rights. But because this thing can be hijacked by someone who wants to control the minds in order to have his reality made manifest instead of our own. So if they want us weak and dumb and stuff like this in order for us to be to obey them and to be compliant, they do this in through you chasing what they have but not being shown the way to get there. So they created a game where basically they know the real rules, and the people who are smart enough to figure it out, but they are aware of the rules, and we are not. So we are being shown the basics of this map of how to play the game, but it is shown just until a certain barrier. So basically they will never teach you in school how to get rich, how to be on the top, because this doesn't sustain them. If everybody starts to make their own business, to make their own money, to make their own communities, to make their own ecosystems of values, and to make their own um, you know, their own societies, then we can then they will not have the power anymore. You know, they will not, their monopoly game, their monopole will not work anymore. And this is of course like their own. This is the the normal thing anyone who is highly narcissistic and egoistic would do. You know, and it's just to have other people work for them, not telling them the truth that they can be on the same level as they are, you know. So, um, so yeah. Um, so yeah, in order to get rich or just provide so much of, to get rich, you could say, to beat the game, you would have to provide so much value and in your on your own terms, um, to in order um, to get the revenue back. You know, it's actually very simple, but a lot of people don't know this. That you just have to provide a lot of something that is valuable to society in order to have something back. You know, and yeah, I mean, I drifted off the. I didn't really drift off, but yeah, we went. I think we went full circle with that. Um, all that to say that society society is a good thing. It is necessary. Community is necessary. Community on a global level is very good too. I think everything is really. It's not bad. It's alright. Okay, but we can still make improvements to democratize the power, you know, to just, you know what I mean, to just not so it's a pyramid like this, you know, but more so it's a wave like this where you have little hierarchies or no hierarchy at all, and things just moving around like this instead of like this, you know, everything going to the top, you know, because we work in the little ecosystem. We give a lot of our time for them, for their machine to work, and you know, they are the middlemen and they get a shit ton of money. It's if they are monopolized in even more, you know. So if we can just think um, more individually and communally, and even if you work on a global level, just to um, you know, not to use things like Amazon and stuff like this. Although Amazon is not a bad thing too in itself, because it's just another marketplace where people can put their things. Um, but is it necessary to expand the values of our society to, because the fact that being naked is illegal is kind of it's kind of crazy in my opinion. I mean, it has not a lot of things to do with sexuality. It is just, I mean, I'm not going around like raping people or stuff like this. Although those are things I thought about and which is very taboo to say about, but not to specifically rape, but just like touching people and stuff like this. This is a very primal thing. This is how primates operate. They just operate on touch, and if the other person doesn't want, they just go away, and maybe they try a little bit more and stuff like this. It's a very primal way of being. And now that we have communication, this this can be more distant, and we can just have uh, mm, more facility in just coherence, and just um, communicating with each other about what we want and what we don't want. So yeah. But alright, this is something that is socially like this, and I mean, I could try to change it, alright, but maybe someday it will change by itself, and I think it is very egoistic, egocentric of me. I'm gonna try to change it. This is like trying to change a fucking machine that is built on screws and stuff like this. If you try to take off the screw that is inside of the machine far away, you will have to completely decompose the whole machine in order to arrive up to that point. Because nowadays it's even not okay to touch anyone, and this can be another thing, to just try to go into that stuff and stuff like this. I think it is important to keep our primate alive, um, like primate work, because our needs, our animal needs, still need to be met, and if they are not, they will try to be met in other ways. So it's important to acknowledge these needs and try to meet them in the most moral and ethical way, whichever culture you live in. Um, there are some agreed rules, and this is normal. Like I think in animals it's the same thing, which is very interesting to study, like this primal way of being, because we are still living much in this primal way, but we have put so much layers and filters on top of it that it has just started to become um, this this disconnected completely from your inner being and your inner needs, like that we think we can just spend, like during COVID, fucking 4 weeks in isolation. It's something that is unthinkable it's just torture. So it's it could, if you are really prepared for it, like yogis do and stuff like this, it could be alright, but it's not something that is advisable. So yeah, I think it's just it's okay to try to change it, but not to get hung up on this idea that we have to fucking save the world and do a revolution and stuff like this, like people are trying to do, because this will just only get you into trouble. If you try to make a revolution, you have to think about another way of living and just live that way. Whatever people are trying to tell you and make you into believing. I mean, if the police comes and you build yourself a house out of mud and stuff, and ecological product, and the police comes and said you have to destroy it because you don't have the permits, this is something that is kind of absurd for me, and I think it's something that you don't need to fight for, but you just need to ignore, because if enough people build themselves like this and ignore the system, um, without fear, we will just come to a point where there's not enough place in prisons for, I mean, yeah, we can try to make something happen in the system too, so it changes the laws and everything, because the laws are kind of good. It keeps people safe and stuff like that, but yeah, I think it's good to just create your own way of being, and strip away the beliefs as much as possible from all the things that we were taught and that we read, and all this cultural conditioning that we've been through, to just try and separate ourselves as much as possible with the um, outside conditions, and try to create our own world, um, which we would like to live in. And my type of this world would be a world of freedom, of empathy, and the thing is, these are values that people have to have internally, and there's a need for police and stuff like this, because people don't have these internal values, but they don't have these internal values because their needs are not met, so they commit crimes because because they need something which they cannot have, and then the primal animal in them starts to come out and to express itself in ways that goes against the law, which the law is very rational and everything, but we are still emotional beings, and if someone is dying of hunger, I can assure you that he will go to a store. If nobody will help him, he will go into a store and risk his life to get something to eat, So yeah, I think it's important to keep that in mind, that every crime uh, has its thinking, has its reasons behind it. People don't commit crime just like that, just for fun, because people are aware of the consequences, but they commit them anyway because they think that committing the crime is that the need being met is still more important than the consequences. So I think that's really important. Yeah, start speaking like Jordan Peterson. I can see myself like doing the same gestures and stuff like this. But all right. Yeah. So yeah, behind every crime there is a person and a need that needs to be met. And behind murders, because behind stealing I can understand, but the psychology of a murderer is kind of something not really I'm not really familiar with, so I cannot tell you more about that. But I would think it's an emotional need that was not met, uh, like anger, jealousy, stuff like that, just not being accepted as they are. So I think most of the murders can be described as a type of emotional damage that has been created in someone, and someone trying to compensate it by um, by committing a crime, by committing murder and just revenge, which is a very human thing to do too. I don't know about animals, but I mean the thing is that we are animals, so that kind of solves the question here. But I don't know if animals have something like revenge and stuff like that. But yeah, if your needs are not met, try to meet them as ethically possible as possible. And yeah, peace and love. Hope you the very best.